Welcome along to our second insight, our second week on this journey. Jumping on today to share with you a little bit around this one, and seems to be pretty perfect timing. So if we run off last week, we had our awareness of synchronicities, and I have shared with you via email a few of the examples that I've had this week, which has been pretty cool. And today in particular, I thought it was a good day to share about the second insight. And I find the second insight to be quite interesting, just in terms of where we are at the moment. It's September 2021, and we're definitely in the middle of transitioning from one era, if you like, to the other. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit of this one, just certain things that stuck out to me, and give you a bit of an insight as to what this insight's all about for this coming week. So we know that the second insight is around understanding history, and not just your own history, but the greater history, and going back further than you yourself to gain an understanding into how it is that we are where we are right now. And I feel that that is really prevalent. And at the time that this book was written, which is 1995, they were definitely going through shifts and changes then as well. And in 1995, I can remember quite clearly for myself what I was doing. I was in my final year at school and a very different person to everybody else that was in my class, that was at my school, and just very different. And if I fast forward that to where I am right now, still feel totally different. However, I recognize that there's more and more people now who are also very different and are switching on as well, and probably were different back then too. So anyway, what I found that I was doing in 1995 was questioning quite a lot the religion that I had been born into. I was going to a Catholic school, and I had two choices when it came to studying religion, and it was that it either counted towards your school certificate and would be on your piece of paper, or it didn't. So either way you had to study it, and I chose for it to not be a part of the academic transcript that I finished education with. And as a result, it meant that I had a little bit more free reign with what I studied. So I actually studied compare and contrast, that type of thing, but did a research project on three different types: Christianity, because I was at a Catholic school, Judaism, and Islamic culture and religion. You could do both, but you had to definitely talk about the religious aspect of it. And during that journey, I do remember quite a lot of questioning and going back as far as I could. And that was my variation of history, I guess, was to go back through the thing that I was studying to show me, in a way, what had created the institution that I was in at that time. Now, that relates really well to this second insight about understanding our history in order to identify how it's created the present, and then recognizing that in order to be born anew, it's very much about our thoughts and what we wish to create. Why? Because the thoughts that created our current reality, or the thoughts, actions, negotiations, meetings, the collaborations, the planning, all takes time. Okay, it all takes time. So the transitory period that we're in right now is definitely about getting our heads together, nutting out the future that we wish to create, and understanding that we have a unique opportunity to collaborate and to really help understand what we have now and what we are living through, and what can we keep from those structures, systems and institutions and way of being, maybe those sort of things, and then what can we add or enhance or change or get rid of. So from the book, we're talking about the history. There is no concept of whether or geological forces or horticultural or disease. So he's talking about, this is medieval, this is dark days, this is early century, and he is talking about what it's like to be someone who is told basically that the church has all knowledge and that as a human you don't, and that it's best for you to learn from the clergy, if you like, or the priests and those that have direct access to all of the information that came from God, and therefore they're the ones that can tell you what to do. So I'll try not to draw similarities to what I'm seeing at the moment. So put yourself back in those shoes. Think about what it would have actually been like to be someone that believed wholeheartedly in what you were being told, and that there was actually no scientific explanation for someone getting sick or for the weather or anything like that. It was that you had upset God, or that person had done something wrong, or if it was a good harvest, it was because God was looking at you favorably. So it was a really strong link to the thought process that we were the only things that existed, and that God just did everything, or gods just did everything to look after us. And if we angered the gods, that's when we ended up with the issues. So think about that, and now go into the medieval period. So go into that point in history where people are being rounded up and accused of being witches and burned at the stake. You've got all those movies and stories like the Knights Templar, the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. Think of all of those sort of things, okay? This is where the church is being exposed for the corruption and things like that. So this is still ongoing, right? But this is back in medieval. This is when there's massive rebellion. This is probably the first huge rebellion where people have gone, hang on a minute, everything that we believed is a lie. And so they revolt. Now, put yourself in that situation. You can no longer believe that anything spiritual or anything that you've been told before is actually true. Imagine how you're feeling in that moment and what you're going to then do. Some people step forward and say, it's okay, we can help, blah, blah, blah. We can create new structures. We'll create a new way to be. Don't worry about the church, because basically they're misleading you, and let's do this. And let's focus on what we can get out of the earth. And oh, by the way, we are just one of many stars in the solar system, and there's multiple solar systems. And Earth, the sun doesn't revolve around a flat Earth. You know, it's bursting all those beliefs, which is really what I feel like we're in now. But think about that. So then what happens is a group of people get sent out, sent out to investigate what's happening, to go out and seek the answers. And in the meantime, we're just going to do the human thing and do what we do and start to do. So we create the industrial era. We create economic drivers. We start to... I want to say rape and pillage, but that might be a bit much. We start to extract minerals from the ground. We start to plant crops. We start to do all of these types of things at a larger scale. Okay, we're talking about economy now, making money, going into the material age. Now, that has lasted for a very long time. Okay, but that's our history, as well as floating around the continent in ships and conquering other nations and... or being conquered, or just experiencing all of the things that have come along with the last, say, 200 years. We are now at that point where perhaps the explorers that we sent out all those years ago have come back. Let's just put it out there like that, okay? The ones that we sent out to seek guidance, to seek truth, to seek a way to match scientific to spiritual, have begun to come back. And now what we are seeing, in my opinion, is a real questioning of the form of existence that we have been living. And that's what I believe would have been happening between when it changed from a world and a life driven entirely by spirit, in terms of what you were told spirit was and God, to a totally materialistic, economically driven society or way of living, or you have to do this in order to get that. Like it's just it's an interesting age to now sitting here and going, okay, there is a unique way to coexist, right? There is a blend between the two. So that's our second insight. Very aware of the time, very aware of what everything feels like today. We need to focus on this one this week. Have a look into history. Look at different things in history. For me, it's quite simple. If I ever get too far down in my own thoughts, I just message Jesse and he talks to me about his version of history. And he's read lots and lots of books and quite widely. So he can tell me that Napoleon, for example, took days off because he had hemorrhoids, or, great person takes a trivia because there's all these random facts. But we can have great discussion about history and how it's influenced the way that things are shaping now. And what I want you to do with this particular insight, and I'm sure that's what this one is about, it's about raising an awareness around things, but it's also about getting us to the point where we question, but we also begin to look at our reason for existence. We start to look at what sort of future do we wish to create, understanding that things take a bit of time, and how we're going to do this. This is Dobson talking to the hero in the book. He looked at me and grinned, and that's what we did 4 centuries ago. We shook off our feeling of being lost by taking matters into our own hands, by focusing on conquering the earth and using its resources to better our situation. And only now, as we approach the end of the millennium, can we see what happened. Our focus gradually became a preoccupation. We totally lost ourselves in creating a secular security, an economic security, to replace the spiritual one we had lost. The question of why we were alive or what was actually going on here spiritually was slowly pushed aside and repressed altogether. He looked at me intensely, then said, "Working to establish a more comfortable style of survival has grown to feel complete in and of itself as a reason to live. And we've gradually, methodically forgotten our own original question. We've forgotten that we still don't know what we're surviving for." Perfect for today, okay? Perfect for this week. We're leading into a Mercury retrograde. We've got a lot of massive planets which will start to shift back in the middle of October. There's never been a better time to do this type of stuff, okay? So I will see you next week for the third insight. Again, this is coming from the Celestine Prophecy. You've been reading it. Share with me. Let me know how you're going. I will email this video to you if you like it. Send it on to other people. And as the week evolves and unfolds, I'll be sure to share with you some experiences. But already it's been quite surreal. And whilst last week was all about noticing the coincidences and the synchronicities and understanding the messages, it's already been a historical journey and a lot of ancestral clearing, and it's huge. It's perfect time to do this, guys. All right, have a fabulous day, and I'll be talking to you again soon.